Hi, thank you for tuning in today to Front Porch Conversations here at the Advent Christian Village. We're on the porch at the Copeland Community Center on a beautiful fall morning. And I want to introduce you to our guest today, Dottie Stone. Dottie, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Dottie, tell our viewers where you live.
Now? I live in Dowling House.
And when did you move there?
4 years ago. In fact, it's been almost to the day 4 years ago.
Great. Well, we'll come back to that a little bit more. But tell us where you were born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm a Tar Heel. And grew up. My parents moved to Florida when I was 2, and I lived all my life in Jacksonville up until I married and then moved to Lake City.
Well, I see from your jacket that you must be something other than a Tar Heel.
Yes, I am.
And what is that?
I'm a Seminole.
And that was where you were educated, your college years?
I went there some. I went there for a semester or so, and then I went back home to work, and, you know, it just was easier, a lot less expensive.
Right.
But Bobby Bowden always will live in my heart forever.
And a lot of other Seminoles' hearts, too.
Yes, I know.
Well, we won't talk about this football season.
No, let's don't.
Let's enjoy the glory from past days for now. Dottie, do you remember anything about living in Wilmington?
Very little. What I do remember, I remember from going up to visit my grandmother in the summers, you know. And now all of her house, all of that's the historic district. As I'm sure you know, Wilmington has just boomed.
Yes.
Like many other places.
My only trip to Wilmington, well, I've been twice, but it was about 2 years ago. So I didn't have any history, but I could see from how beautifully they've restored and maintained the downtown that it must have been a real heyday.
It was fun.
Have a special memory about doing things in Wilmington?
The beach. Summers? I'm a beach gal, and we'd go up every summer and spend the summer, at least part of the summer, on the beach. And for a kid, that's just like Disney World is now.
Exactly. And during the time you were growing up in Jacksonville, you attended school there?
Yes, I did. Lived there, as I said, until I married at 22. Went to school there, you know, went to college there. I loved Jacksonville. Now the traffic just scares me to death.
And for our viewers who may have grown up in the Jacksonville area, where did you go to high school?
DuPont, which is no more.
I guess it's a junior high still, isn't it? Or not?
I can't remember if they made it a junior high or an administration building, but it needed something.
Well, after finishing college and getting married, where did your career path take you?
My career path started at 8 years old when I opened my first daycare in my mother's carport. And I charged 50 cents a week. Needless to say, every kid in the block was in my daycare. But I babysat for a lot of them, so, you know. But after I stayed home with my children for a while, then I went back to substitute teaching, and eventually went to work for several, I did family therapy work, and then eventually I worked with children with special needs.
And that, I'm sure, was very rewarding.
Oh, I loved it.
Difficult career, too.
I still miss my children. I call them my children. I miss my children.
And how long did you do that for?
I did that for almost 8 years.
And then after that, did you have a new...
It was called retirement.
Okay. And we've talked briefly about the things that you learned during those years working with families. You were talking about people just often people did not know what difficult circumstances families had to live under.
I think that our lack of knowledge, you really have to go out in these woods and go in those homes. I have seen walls, I forget sheetrock, they had up newspapers back when you bought newspapers, you know. But they were still there and holding up. I've seen the most deplorable poverty, given this is America. And it's here. It's right here in this area. It's not in some other state. It's not in some other it is in other countries too, because I've been to some of them, as have you. But I mean, it's bad right here, and our schools are in deplorable condition.
And you've done a good bit of volunteer work, I understand.
Well, yes.
Tell us about some of your volunteer work.
Well, it's been varied. I've volunteered in daycare centers. I've volunteered teaching. I volunteered in the prison.
And what did you do in the prison?
I was teaching life skills, how to function in that world out there, because it's not going to be pretty when you get out. You know, how to open a checking account, how to write a check, you know, some realistic, this is how you survive. Hopefully so they wouldn't go back, but I've done that, and I was trying to think, I've done some money raising events. Just, you ask, and I like to volunteer.
When you, after you left Jacksonville, where did you live next?
Lake City. And I lived in Lake City for about 30 years, and then my husband's job was in Gainesville. I was in Lake City, he was in Gainesville, so he commuted every day, so we just swapped it, moved to Gainesville, and I started commuting every day.
And what you were telling me about something you did as a volunteer behind the cameras. What was his career in that?
Oh, my husband was a broadcast engineer, so I have pulled wire, worked a character generator. If you know what that's, the little words across the bottom of the screen. Sitting there, worked through a hurricane with him, and then I did several other events with him that, where he was needed to produce the show.
So you have appreciation for the guys here behind the cameras.
I certainly do.
And the products they're able to perform and turn out for us.
Yes, I'm very grateful.
Where are some of the places you've traveled outside of the country?
Primarily, besides the Caribbean and all that, South Africa. And I went there for 2 weeks, and yes, I'll go back in a New York minute if I wasn't somewhat, restrained. But I went with Habitat for Humanity. It's a wonderful way to travel, and it's fun work.
It is work.
It is
work, but it is fun. I've had the chance to do that.
It is fun. So,
what jobs did you have on the Habitat site? Dottie, you were talking about you had been to South Africa with Habitat for Humanity.
Yes.
What were some of the jobs you did on the building site, or were you at the building site?
I was on the buildings. Everyone is on the building site. But when they ask if anybody could drive a four-wheel, a stick shift. Stupid. What I did literally was pick up garbage and deliver water all week.
Oh. Well, there are not a lot of people in the younger generation who know how to drive a stick shift.
I know. And the dealer there had loaned us so many because the water was down here and you go up a mountain to the build site. So there was a lot of back and forth with a lot of weight.
Well, I have laid sod at a work site, and they tell you the only thing you have to know is to put the green side up. And painted and hung some siding, but they told me I did a good job, but it would take me 2 weeks to finish half a wall. So, But that's what you get with volunteers. It's good intentions and
That's
wanting
right.
to do.
And it amazes me when I was I went to the Valdosta project up there too, which they shared with another city. But to see 100 homes go up in a week is really overwhelming.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't imagine that a week ago there were concrete slabs. Those are poured early so they can cure.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then you come in and walls start going up and roofs go on and boom, baba, boom, baba, boom. In a week, you're giving a house to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Somebody who's put a lot of sweat equity in it themselves.
And I should say, you're giving them a chance to make that mortgage payment.
Right. Well, I think that's one of our most successful volunteer programs around the world that has started.
I think so too, and I think a lot of the reason that it is so successful is because it is sweat equity.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work on your own home.
Right.
And you do have to pay for it.
So you've gone to building sites in the United States as well as South
Yes.
Africa. Dottie, tell us a little bit about how you came to find out about the village and move here.
I have known about the village for years. When my daughter was quite young, she needed some therapy, and I was not happy with what I could find in Lake City and the surrounding area there. I just didn't like what they were telling my little girl. And so I went to the head of Meridian at that time, Ms. Betty Strayer, and Betty said, Dottie, call Advent Christian Village. So I have known about Advent Christian Village about 40 years.
And for some of our viewers, they may not know that at various points in the history of the village, there has been an orphanage here, group homes for children, and other kind of special counseling services.
She came over here for therapy, but I just thought it was beautiful. And I was very, very well pleased. And so when I knew it was here, and so when I knew I had to do something, and I thought Dowling Park is just the perfect place. And it is.
Well, we're certainly glad you've chosen Dowling Park and
Well,
Advent Christian
thank
Village
you.
to be your home.
Thank you.
What is one of your favorite memories?
I would have to say as a child, my father ran a fertilizer plant. And I mean, you really can't imagine one till you see one. There are mountains of those sulfur and so forth out there, not just a little, go buy a little bag in Lowe's or something. But if they were loading a ship, Daddy would let me ride out the plant with him. I thought that was probably the most exciting thing in the whole world.
Seeing those ships, did that give you an inkling that you wanted to go sailing someday, or?
Oh, well,
travel?
I've always known. I mean, my mother said I walked early and I never stopped.
What are some of the things that you've done since you've moved to the village?
Not much. The largest thing for me, just personally, is I'm walking again. Not far, but I'm walking. And that's a huge step for me. And, of course, met some really nice people here.
And I will tell you that I know something you've done since you've been here. You've started attending church at St. Luke's and renewed your commitment to being a daughter of the King.
Yes, I have.
Which is a women's organization.
Yes, I have.
In our diocese.
And I love that little church.
It's beautiful to look at, but it's beautiful in spirit as well.
Exactly. The people. The people.
If you were asked today to give advice to a young person, what would it be?
Start saving for retirement now. You really do not need a $50,000 car. You need a retirement account, no matter how small.
I think that's good advice. And it doesn't have to be a young person. People who are a little further along should also make those same plans.
It's kind of like, to me, I feel like my generation kind of got caught between the middle. We got caught between the we were getting a little old to start building our fund when all of a sudden everybody says, start building, Suze Orman on going to start building that fund now because, boy, you're going to need it. Well, nobody told me that when I was 20, and here we are. So I'm very grateful for Dowling Park.
When you were commenting as we were sitting on the porch about what a lovely place the view here was and everything, do you like being in a more rural setting?
Yes, I'm an outside girl. Although, to tell you the truth, if I had my druthers, I would be sitting on the beach right now. I've always have been a beach person, but I just like outside.
Do you have things on your bucket list that you want to accomplish?
Not many left. I was going to do skydiving, and I scratched that one. I don't think they'll take me up now. Really, I don't. I'm too much of a risk. But I've been very, very blessed in my life, and I have accomplished just about everything on my bucket list that I wanted to do.
As somebody told me the other day in one of our conversations, they had revised their bucket list and reset their priorities.
Well, there's just not.
And when you've done so many things, that's...
Yeah. I mean, I would love to go to Great Britain and the Greek Isles. I don't see that in my future anytime soon, unless I'm on Wheel of Fortune.
Well, maybe the gentleman who's winning all the money on Jeopardy would sponsor you.
Well, maybe so.
You never know.
You never know. You never know. And you never know where life will take you.
One of the things I always say is the reason you make a plan is so you can change it.
Absolutely. But now, one of my sayings is, when opportunity comes and sits on your lap, take advantage of it. Don't say, "Oh, I don't know if I want that opportunity, Lord. That's not the one I asked for." You will be blessed so many times over if you'll just take the opportunity that's there. I never dreamed in 1,000 years I'd ever get to Africa. I've wanted to go since I was 18. Took me a few years, but I got there. 30 years later, I got there.
And that's one of the things I think as we age a little bit, where we know that everything doesn't have to happen on our time frame, because it won't, but to be accepting of that and take advantage of it whenever you can. So what is there about Dottie Stone you'd want people to know?
Oh dear, I don't know. I don't like to say hard-headed or stubborn. I like tenacity better.
That's a great word.
Quite tenacious. And I love to organize. I like to plan and organize, and then once you've gone through that and then you see it materialize, you're just like blown out of the water.
Another thing I would say that I've really observed is your sense of humor.
Well, thank you.
Your wittiness and your great laugh.
Thank you.
Thanks for that example.
Yeah, I didn't mean to, But, another example of that is I think a lot of people think with Habitat for Humanity, you just send up there to Plains or Americas and say, I want to have a chapter in my town. And Habitat says, okay, here you go, get started building. That's not how it works. It took me almost 2 years to get it, the ground floor and the foundation, which I'd work on at night, and before you even have your first board meeting. To begin with, you got to find board members.
And you need board members who are going to work, and you're going to need board members who
and
are
that's
going to
why
raise
they don't
money.
want to be on the board, because they know they're going to have to work.
So you were instrumental in starting the chapter in Lake City?
Yeah, I did start it.
That's quite an accomplishment, Dottie.
Well, I'm happy that God and I had the same plan.
That's true. And it goes a lot better when you work with God and His plan.
Yes, it does seem to go better. I have noticed that in my life.
Sometimes He just has to get my attention. It was there all along, but I didn't pay any attention.
Well, I think we see things differently at different times in our lives.
Right.
I certainly don't see things now at my age that I did it the way I saw them at 30,
Dottie, I know you have a great love for animals. Tell us about where that's taken you and some of your pets.
Where hasn't it taken me is more like
Okay.
it. I think I've had it, I've never had an alligator. I've never had a horse. I never had sheep, but I had a little goat when I was a little girl, but the goat ate my hair, so Daddy got rid of that. But, cats, dogs, and always rescued animals. I'm just really keen on that. There's so many animals that needed to be rescued. The cat I have now was adopted from someone who passed away here, and he just wasn't doing well in his foster setting because there was another cat. He was spoiled, and he is, and but so far I think I'm coming along nicely as his staff. He tells
good.
me yes.
And
yes.
what is his name?
His name is Cat.
I like
very original Cat.
And you've had volunteer experience with animals also?
Yeah, well, quasi. Take them in my home. They always managed to stay, but I've done a lot of doctoring and a lot of, I wanted to be a vet. So I was always very fortunate that my vet thought that I had some pretty good sense about animals and, would let me kind of treat them at home rather than always have to haul them in, Dottie, go get this and such, and, that helped.
What would you say was the most challenging pet you ever had? Was it just until they got you trained?
No. No, the most pitiful, rather, was a little toy poodle, and it had been inbred too many times, and that thing was so anxious and so hyper, and so, we'd come home from work, and the house was just destroyed. And I finally had to give it to someone else because I just could not work and take care of all the damage at the same time. And the little dog was so unhappy.
Well, but I bet you've had a lot of fun experiences with other pets.
Oh, boy, have I.
Well, I'm glad that Cat and you are together now.
Well, thank you. We're also quite content with the arrangement.
Good. Well, thank you, Dottie, so much for being here with us and spending some time on the porch talking with me.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed it. And thank you for watching, and tune in again for another Front Porch Conversation.